Welcome to week 4 of the My Inner Struggle podcast. I'm Laura.
Hi, I'm Julie.
Every time you say, "Hi, I'm Julie," I feel like it's the SNL skit that I sent you, about the sweaty balls.
The sweaty balls.
Yeah, I think we should reenact that for like April Fool's Day or something like that.
Well, we just told everybody. Now we can't. Well, I guess we could still
funny
do it.
Anyway. Yeah. I don't know. That was funny. So, welcome to the My Inner Struggle podcast.
Episode 4.
Episode 4, crazy. I have been writing a blog. You can find it at myinnerstruggle.com for about 8 years, kind of documenting my journey of self-discovery, been through divorce, marriage, kids, getting healthy, jobs, all sorts of things,
life,
dating, everything. So it's fun. And now we're kind of bringing it to you here for a purely tantalizing experience here with Julie.
Wow. No idea. It was part of something so
tantalizing. So last week we talked about, and make sure obviously you're following us on YouTube. Subscribe because you don't want to miss anything.
Share.
And we do like videos in between too of the podcasts and stuff like that too. So last week, we talked about creating space, and as part of your time, right, Julie did her homework and shared her space. Sorry. Shared her space that she was working on. Do you want to tell us about your week and your space that you cleaned?
So, I'm a huge sports, we're a big sports family. So this week starts baseball and softball for us. So I cleaned my whole car out, which was really nice. Vacuumed it and wiped the windows and everything. And then I prepped my mom's sports bag. It's got a blanket and a poncho and bug spray and sunblock and a little fan.
You're like a professional.
Yeah. And then it's got a first aid kit, and then I throw my snacks in there, which are usually some sort of
bar
gummy bears. No. It's always candy. So I got, all of that ready to go.
Good.
Yeah. Good job. So that makes me feel ready to start the week.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks.
If you hadn't caught up on last week, catch up. It's all about creating space, all sorts of space in your life. Catch up. And there's a post on the Facebook group. If you don't, or if you're not a member, check it out because there's all sorts of activity going on there. That's for sure. And we created a post basically just so people could post their pictures of their physical space after pictures, not before pictures.
Not before.
Yeah.
Because we didn't do that.
So this week we were going to talk about what, Julie?
This week our topic is inner strength.
Okay.
What that looks like, some qualities. Everybody has inner strength.
You just have to access it.
And what that can look and feel like.
Yeah. So this is one thing. So I have like a million thoughts in my head right now. Sorry. I'm
just a million today.
Like paralysis right now. So, one of the things that I've always admired about you is your ability to just do stuff. And I spend so much more time in that contemplation stage of things. Not as extreme as some other people that I've encountered, but I definitely, when it's something that's different to me, or I'm not quite sure how I'm going to execute something, I struggle with that a little bit. So, and sometimes it's how I feel or whatever, but Julie has this ability to just kind of get it done. And I marvel at that, you are my idol in that sense, but yeah.
I don't know, I feel like in maybe a few others. I mean, I don't think we have to limit my idol
status. Idleness. Yeah. Or idleness.
Sometimes I'm kind of just jump in and get it done and go from there.
I marvel at that. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little impulsive. It can be.
Well, and it depends.
Yeah.
We typically don't talk about our topics until we sit down at the podcast because
we throw them into our Google Doc that we have together,
so
but
we have some thoughts, but we don't really talk about it beforehand.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it much more authentic because Julie is a different place in her journey as I am. Our experiences are different, you know, so we have different things to add. And so when Julie said last week about inner strength, and I was like, and she, you know, she's like, oh, let's do inner strength. And I thought about it for a second. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll roll with that. I don't exactly know what I have to contribute, but let me ponder that for a little bit. So we did, and here we are. And one of those things is your ability to get up and go. And I have a harder time. I might sit in a space for a little bit, and it's just kind of how I am, but I have to work through that. Yeah. And one of the things that I said recently in a newsletter was I had read a good book recently that was referred by a coach of mine by Mel Robbins called The 5-Second Rule. And it's kind of like a really great tool to use if you are like me. And I'm sure you would use it maybe in some instances too, but I found myself after I had read it, starting to do this myself. So the concept is basically you're counting backwards from 5 to 1 and then launching yourself into action. So whatever that, you know, is it getting out of bed in the morning, or, you know, and getting up and going in the shower, dreading your day. That's not typically me. I'm just not a super great morning person.
I, on the other hand,
you are.
I am a morning person.
You've rubbed off on me a little bit since we started collaborating. Julie joined me in my consulting business as well. So we're discussing things a lot throughout the day. And when she gets up in the morning, she, you know, gets up and gets moving. And I'm like a turtle in the morning. I just need space and coffee and no one talk to me just for a little bit, just so that I can wake up a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're much different in that way. So anyway, the Mel Robbins method has worked for me in a number of ways, you know, like those tasks that you're just like dreading, like, I know I have to do the laundry. Okay, Laura, you know, I played Let's Make a Deal with myself like all day long. So, you know, okay, Laura, let's go. We're going to get the laundry done. Let's bring it down the stairs, and find myself in my head counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just spring into action.
That's awesome.
And it really does. Great. It's a good tool. So it's by Mel Robbins. It's called The 5-Second Rule. Highly recommend that. And she's got a lot of great tips too. So if you're in this mindset, and I mean, if you're listening to this, it shows me that you're at least interested in thinking and doing better. And it's all about like growing. It's not changing your whole life, but all of those little tiny thoughts and everything, kind of those seeds get planted and you ponder that. And maybe those will make some great positive impressions on your life and your future. So that's what I wanted to say about that. But I also wrote a blog, Friday, or I don't know, someday last week, about tapping into that inner strength, right? So I left a job a little over a year ago, and it was a tough decision. I really enjoyed the people, and quite frankly, going and doing something else, I didn't really get the exit that I had wanted to. I didn't really get to say goodbye to people. So it's kind of weird that, you know, most of the people don't really know what happened, or they're hearing some sort of skewed version of something. Right? So I spent like a good few months, honestly. Actually, it was probably more than that. Well, I was, you know, developing everything that I'm doing now with my business, but like sort of afraid to like run into people. And I loved those people. So there's no reason I don't want to see them, other than the fact that, you know, it's just uncomfortable. So, and I've said before, like, I feel like I'm constantly uncomfortable. I have to keep learning these fucking lessons like all over the place. And I'm tired, quite frankly. But, so I was sort of letting that control me a little bit. And I didn't even realize it, that I was like, there is no reason that I should be hiding. Like, I know that I did everything
you could
that was authentic to me, you know, and it was simply my decision. And I hate the way that it sort of, you know, panned out in the end, but it doesn't really matter anymore. And I am who I am, and people love me for me. And I had recently connected with an old boss of mine. That's a good friend of mine. And, you know, kind of said like, who the fuck cares? You left that legacy, you know, everybody loves you for you. And when you do see people out, which I do all the fucking time, you know, I just get like a hug and a kiss and like, oh my God, I miss you. Nothing's the same. But I was starting to dread it a little bit. So I was letting that sort of control that. And in reality, you really have to let your desire for something be bigger than your fear. That's how you tap into that inner strength. And if it's not bigger than your fear, then you're just caving into something that really doesn't need your attention, right?
There's something I read recently, and I'm not going to be able to remember exactly where I saw it, but it said something very similar to the effect of, it's okay to be the villain in their story because you are the hero of your own.
I like that.
You know, which is true, because like you said, the narrative maybe is not, you know, the truth of the situation.
Right. Well, it's one person's perspective or opinion, whether it be right or wrong.
But it's stopping you from.
But it was stopping me from like really like, so it's almost like, you know, really living authentically, you know, and that's not who I am in any way, shape, or form. So it's really like an inner struggle of mine. See that? So
I see what we did there.
Yes. So that was like kind of hard to navigate. But again, you cannot let fear win. You have to just go for it, and it'll be good in the end. I promise. It's uncomfortable, but
well, it's scary. You know, and nobody likes change, and fear can be debilitating, and it can be one of those things that really holds you back from figuring out what it is you want, you know, which we've talked about.
That's a tough question for people.
Yeah.
But you know, you had a quote too that you wanted to share, right?
I did, yes.
I want it to be now because I want to keep talking after because I like it a lot.
Okay. Yeah. So this quote is from Eleanor Roosevelt, who Laura and I had, you know, spoke about, that we think she was
way ahead of her time.
But she says, "You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I lived through that horror, and I can take the next thing that comes along," which I think is extremely powerful, because to date, you have lived through every bad thing that's happened to you. No, you have. I mean,
survived. Yeah.
You've survived, you know, job loss, love loss, you know, grief, I'm sure, pain, you know, loss of a loved one or a pet or whatever tragedy, and or great things, marriage, children, you know, schooling, jobs. It's funny because
it's kind of the struggles that sort of make us who we are.
Absolutely.
And, you know, like when I started my blog, I had just lost my mom, which, you know, it just sort of pushed me to make that change. So I write a lot of this in my book, but my mom struggled with depression for a really long time, and she never really addressed it. And it wasn't until this last year that I sort of connected everything together. So I started my blog right after she passed away, and it was very sudden and unexpected. And I knew in that moment, and what pushed me was to start living, honestly, because she lived her life very unhappy, and I didn't want to do that. And I was, at that time, I was not in a space that I wanted to be at. You know, there's just a lot happening around me that I wanted to change. And so that was like that first layer of change, and it keeps just happening. Right. But I got through that. Right. And you lost your mom as well. And your circumstance is so far different than my circumstance, and your relationship with your mom and the things that you went through and my past and like all of that. But we're both capable. Yeah. Everybody is capable. You are capable. You just have to believe in yourself and practice those things to push yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's so many different qualities for inner strength, and, you know, yours is that, you know, you recognize what you don't want your life to be.
Right.
And then you're finding the strength from within to make it into the life you want it to be.
Right.
Right.
So, and part of like
courage, and it's
and
sacrifice and discipline,
being consistent.
And all of those patience. Patience is a huge one.
You know, the funny thing is that like I lost both of my parents pretty young. Honestly, my dad died very suddenly when I was 18. It was like a week before I graduated high school. And that changed the whole trajectory of my entire life, really, when you think about it. And then my mom, I feel like kind of died at that point too. She didn't really want to be around anymore.
Yeah.
And when she passed away, you know, 20 years later, I was like, that's it. Life is, and she was young even then. I think she was 62. And I'm like, there are so many things that neither of them did, that always talked about doing. And that's why I was like, fuck this. Life is too short. I am not waiting around for anything anymore. And granted, it's easy to say that. It's a lot harder to actually embody that and keep moving forward with life. But your desire to do, think, and be better has to be bigger than your fear of those things, of those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, it's a lifelong process, right?
Yes. I mean, it's not a flip of a switch.
No.
I mean, the instinct or the, talking about it can be,
yeah.
And we all like, there's so many, like, especially on this, like on Facebook, say, right? We have this large Facebook community that's growing every day and it's really cool. We share some daily affirmations, all sorts of, conversation starters. Yesterday I made this video actually about, being intimidating. So check that out. I want your feedback on that. And feedback, honestly, is how we grow.
Yeah.
So when I ask Julie shit, like all the time, like, what do you think of this? What, like just for genuine feedback of myself, not of like a situation, like, what would you do with this? Do you think that I handled this appropriately? Or I'm blanking on it, like an example, but yeah. So, when you can ask, well, and actually we said yesterday too, I think we shared like a quote, we share a lot of shit together, but, about never ask for somebody's advice that hasn't been through what you've been through. Now that can seem kind of tricky, right? Because you haven't been through the exact same things I've been through, but there could be similar situations.
Yeah.
And of course it is good to ask friends for objective advice no matter what, but actually your friends are probably never really objective because they care about you too much. I'm getting really deep now.
I'm pretty sure that I have told you, like, sometimes she'll ask me really hard questions, like, do I have on enough lip gloss? And I'll be like, no, you don't. You should probably put on some more, but
which I don't. But
it's true. I do think sometimes your friends maybe sugarcoat things just because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
Well, and they care about you. So even if it's like versus like a situation or another person, fuck that. They don't deserve you or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, that's not maybe that is the case, but how do I get there myself? So your desire has to be bigger than your fear. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that should be like a t-shirt.
Oh, do you want to make one?
Right. I think I need to make one. I'll make coffee mugs. Well, by coffee mugs, of course, I mean wine glasses. I don't know why I said coffee mugs. I didn't mean that at all. I meant wine.
They're wine mugs, right? I mean, we could do wine mugs.
Yeah, I guess I could put wine in a mug.
I might be asleep by the end of the podcast
I'm not
if
sure.
we do that.
I'm not sure.
And then, so part of digging into that inner strength, right, is all of those things that we talked about in the first few episodes about how you talk to yourself. I'm proud of myself. I can do this. Mantras and affirmations. When you say an affirmation, you're affirming this positive thing, but we can also affirm negative things too. So we really want to watch that.
Yeah.
So a mantra, I had one that just popped up like on my phone before. I have the ability to bounce back from my setbacks, period. We all make stupid decisions. We all do stupid shit sometimes, but our ability to take accountability for ourselves, move forward, apologize, do whatever you need to do and move forward, into change, those are really important skills to have.
Yeah. And they're all tying into inner strength.
Tapping into
they're all tapping into
sort of like suck it up and be an adult and let's go.
Yeah. When I was doing some research on inner strength and different qualities of it, one of the ones was forgiving and letting go, which can be very, very difficult for people. And it's difficult sometimes, especially if you feel like you're not wrong, even though you may very well be wrong. But if you don't feel like it, if you can't own it, then it's hard to.
You have to embody that whole practice. And embodiment is something that I kind of just, the phrase itself, like kind of learned like, I don't know, a year or two ago. I hadn't really used it in anything, but to embody something is to mean to like live that practice, right? So if we say we're forgiving someone or we're letting something go, you actually have to do it and actually have to, work at it each day. It doesn't, all of these things that we talk about, all of these changes, it's a lifelong process. And when you get to the next level, you start all over again, kind of like I gave this example recently is, like when I decided to make a change, I was, actually, let me back up. I've been on my own for about 5 years. So when I got divorced, I did a lot of digging into myself. And I spent a couple years, it was COVID, of course. So I spent a couple of years on my own and just figuring myself out. I was dating and stuff, but I wasn't like really in a relationship or anything. I was really just focused on Laura and growing as a person. Mm-hmm. And then I entered into a relationship and I was like, what the fuck are these thoughts? I thought I fixed this. So you enter this whole new realm and some of those same triggers happen. Some different triggers might happen, but when you continue working on it, you go back to the basics, back to those like core values that you set for yourself, core consistent daily activities like meditation or working out or, doing your affirmations, things like all of those things. You dive in again. And sometimes, and you might not have that practice like every day for like 10 years. Maybe you'll like stop and do something else and reading or something like that. But sometimes when you reach a new level and it's sort of triggering those old thoughts or you're in a new situation, it's important to go back to the basics and just begin your practice again because those things like really, really work and asking your why. So as I entered a relationship, I had all this like old stuff sort of creep up and it was like, oh, holy shit. Okay. Now, why am I feeling this way? Yeah. So when you ask yourself why, and without inner strength, you wouldn't be doing any of these things. And the thing is that you're doing things that access your inner strength all the time. You just don't realize it. Yeah. Because you are capable of getting to the next step of going through the mud and coming out in one piece at the other end. Right? Is that too much? Sorry.
No, not at all.
So
it's just a lifelong, and it's ever evolving. It's going to change. The older we get, I think we talked about this. The older you get, the more what's important changes. Mm-hmm. So as what's important to you changes, as what you want your life to look like changes, then all of that inner struggle, inner strength, all of it's going to change with you, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's just, it kind of has to. It's ever evolving.
Do you want to say that one more time?
I can't. I don't even know if I could if I tried. No, thank you.
I'm so tired right now. I don't know what. Oh, you know what? It's that time of day. So,
what do you want to talk about next week?
So next week, I'm really excited about this one because, like I said, we don't really discuss these things before we get here. But Julie got to the office today and she's like, we need to talk about what we're going to do next week. And I said, I already have an idea. And I want to talk about discovering your love language because it's not just about romantic relationships. Your love language applies to every relationship in your life, in your house, in your life. And it's really important and interesting to know about yourself. So I do not know Julie's love language. She's going to take the quiz. If you want to take the quiz before next week's podcast, feel free. Just Google 5 love languages quiz. Yep. Something will come up. You take a quick little quiz and it's interesting to find out. I mean, I knew what mine was before I took the quiz. I think I know what hers is, but I don't want her to tell me until we're here on the podcast. And then I might be jumping up and down. I feel like fall off my chair. I'm not sure.
What was the show where they revealed the DNA results if the kid is yours or not?
Maury.
Yeah. That's what we're going to be like. You are.
But anyway, so that's really interesting. And it really does, it's like your work relationships, your friendships, your spouse, your kids, everything. So I can't wait to talk about that because I could talk forever about that.
That'll be fun. That'll be a really fun one.
So thank you for joining us in week 4 of the podcast. I'm so excited. Tell all of your friends about it because this is the fastest growing podcast. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, subscribe, follow the My Inner Struggle page on Facebook and on Instagram.
Read the blog
at myinnerstruggle.com. Send, any messages or things that feedback or things that you want
Comments.
to learn more about, or if you have any questions.
Yeah.
And have a great week.
Have a great week, everybody.